Well, here we are again talking about basketball. And we pick up in the late 80s, I think 88, 89. The Fulda situation has come to a rather dramatic end. And I have branded myself or been branded officially a basketball coach by profession, which means I've got to keep looking for basketball jobs. So as Fulda came to a close, I also learned a lot about coaching and life and crossroads. One of the things that I learned is that basketball is or sports coaching is one of the most unstable, insecure professions on the planet. It might not be unique in this sense, but certainly close to it. It's one of the few professions where you're not measured by what you do, really. And it isn't like being a assembly line worker or a salesman or a production individual or anything like that. They're measured on piecework. You're measured on how much of an item you make or how much of an item you sell or how much of an item you can trade. It's basically what you do is what the measurement is that people judge you by. Basketball coaching and most other sports coaching, you do your work, but you're measured by what somebody else does with that work. You can be the greatest coach on the planet, and if the players don't execute the plan that you gave them, it doesn't mean that the plan is wrong. It's just that the players couldn't get it done quite often. But the coach is the one that pays the price for it. I also learned that it was my first, I knew this kind of stuff existed, but it had never happened to me, where you find out that relationships and politics can have a huge effect on your job. How the team reacts, how your fans react, how management reacts. Sometimes it's political or relationship oriented, and there's nothing you can do about it. I ran into that firsthand. My first job after Fulda, I got a women's professional team in Oberhausen, or at least I thought I had a women's professional team in Oberhausen. It was a kind of a weird situation in that it's the first time I'd ever been asked to do what they call probe training, which means you go out first and you have to go on the floor and demonstrate with the team what your skill level is. And if the team likes you and if the administration likes you, you get the job. Here, you're hired on your resume and an interview and your record and whatever. But there, it was about, you come down here and you show us what you can do, and we'll put you on contract for a limited period of time. And if things look good, we'll keep you. Well, that was my first one of those. So, I was fairly confident at that point. So I took the job and went down there and went to work. Little did I know that in the back rooms, there was a lot going on. There were some other people that the people before me wanted to have, people that had been there before me who wanted the job, and they never stopped working against me, unfortunately. Nevertheless, I thought I was doing a pretty good job. The first thing I did was went out and got a point guard, and there are two players that are bright spots in that whole Oberhausen situation. One was the point guard, Mary Gavin, who I had worked real hard to get from Notre Dame. Mary came in as the point guard, and then there was Uta Kretschmann, who was just an outstanding player. I got along great with Uta and her mother, and it was a great relationship, and I think that Mary and Uta would have been just a phenomenal 1-2 punch at the guard spot. At any rate, about 4 weeks into it, before we get to that, I got to tell you this story about Mary. We got Mary, or the club got Mary, a really nice apartment on a pretty well-traveled street. And she moved into the apartment, and we were going to practice every day. And of quite often I'd pick her up because she didn't have a car yet. So I'd pick her up and take her to practice and bring her back home, or she'd get a ride from one of the players. Well, one day she said to me in practice, she said, "Coach, I can't understand what's going on. I keep getting these knocks on my door all hours of the day and night, and I just don't understand it." So I said, "Well, I'll take you home tonight and we'll take a look at it." So I'm driving Mary home, and as we get close to her house, I see this bright red light coming from her window. And I said, "Mary, that's your apartment, right?" She said, "Yes." Well, like in college back in my room, I had all kinds of colored lights in my room, and I really liked that. And so I got a blue light in the corner, and I got this red light for the front window. And I said, "Mary, do you know what a red light district is?" She said, "No." And we all laughed, but we certainly got rid of that red light really quickly, and Mary never had another problem with that. At any rate, Mary and Uta were just two really good players. The best memory, probably the only positive memory that I have from Oberhausen, because about 4 weeks into my test contract, they decided that they were going to go in another direction, and I was told that my contract would not be made permanent. And they hired some other people that had already been there for some time, and finally got the administration convinced that they were the ones who should have the job. So I packed my bags and left. Fortunately, right around the corner, well, not right around the corner because it's quite a bit of ways, I got picked up by TSV Weilheim down there in Munich, and that went much better. But again, I learned from politics. I get down there, I have a great group of talented players, one of which is Bärbel Kolderhoff. Bärbel was just an outstanding player. She was, I guess, at that time, the women's version of Charles Barkley. Bärbel was just tougher than nails. She jumped, rebounded, scored in ridiculous situations, had an outside shot, and just a really fun person too. So Bärbel, I want to thank her for all of her efforts because she was great to have on the team. Then there was Janet Fowler, who I will get to later on, about 20 years later, or 10, I'm not sure which, but I got a chance to coach Janet again. Janet was an outstanding scorer. She was on the Canadian national team. She's now a very good coach in Würzburg, but Janet was just an outstanding player. Let me see, Steffi was a center, pretty solid center. I got to be honest, the best thing about Steffi, she made the best Käse Spätzle on the planet. I mean, the whole team loved it. We couldn't wait for every time we won. Well, not every time, but Steffi made her Käse Spätzle, and it was good. It was really good. Then there was Ingrid Heidler, another player that I really liked to have. There was a young player named Mickey Fuchs, who I would have loved to have coached longer. Let me see who else was on that team. Janet and Bärbel. And Billa Wiedemann. Billa was she was also a German national team player, just a great slashing scorer who could also shoot from deep. Really fun to have on the team. Great personality. And it was, but the politics came in because, I'm as you all know, I'm kind of old school and I'm set in my ways. Even back then I was set in my ways. And I had a situation where I picked my team captains based on performance. And what happened there, and this is my first experience with entitlement in politics, it turns out that the player that I picked for my team captain, as I said, based on what she was doing in the preseason workouts and everything else, was Bärbel. Bärbel was she was just hardest working, tough as nails, coachable player, one of the top that I've ever coached. And I decided to make Bärbel the captain. Well, about a week after I make the decision for captain, I get a call from an upset club leader who tells me that Bärbel can't be captain. And I wanted to know why not. Well, because we've got a captain. She's been captain for 5 or 6 years. I said, yeah, well, that's then. This is now. And I was told that, well, everybody just expects her to be captain. Now, it just turns out that her dad is also the club president. Well, I'm sorry. I told him that didn't hold much water with me. And that was a sore spot that stayed to the very end of the season. At any rate, we had a pretty good season. Things went along well. And I've talked about the players that I really enjoyed having on the team: Berbel, Janet, Ingrid, Mickey. They were the top player, and Billa. They were the ones that I really enjoyed having. But the entire season, there was that negativity in the background, and it showed up at the end of the season. The end of the season is rolling around. We had a pretty decent season, but we know we could do better. And as I'm talking with the club president about extending my contract for the next 2 years, there's a lot of time being passed. We're getting closer to the very end of the season. And I know in the professional sports area, at least in Europe, at the end of the season, clubs are looking for the coach that they want for the next season. If I wait too long in Weilheim to look for a new job and Weilheim says no, I'm stuck holding my gym bags in my hand with no place to go, no coach, and no salary. So I started looking around, and while I'm looking around, I'm asking every day, what's going on? Aaron, what's the deal? When are you guys going to decide? And I'm being told this and I'm being told that. And while all that's going on, I get another job offer in the men's side of the house. And I had once turned down Gießen, which in the after effect was probably for me financially a mistake. I was not about to make that mistake again. So I agreed to a contract with a men's team. And at the time that I agreed to that contract and everything was all set, the next day I get a call from the club president at Weilheim saying that, okay, we're going to extend with you. And I had to tell him it was too late. That left a sore spot there, which I can understand. But by the same token, my side said I had no choice. I had made too many decisions in my past emotionally because I had ties to the team, to the player, to the club, whatever. And I'm beginning to realize that I can't keep doing that. If I want to survive as a coach, sometimes you have to take what's there based on logic and not on emotions. And as I talked about it in my book, which I hope you'll get, It's the Coach's Fault, I talk a lot about how you make decisions when you come to crossroads. Well, at this point, I made the decision to go to Siegen and take the men's program there. And I had to tell Weilheim that it was over. The worst part of leaving that job was my young girls team. I had started coaching the young girls, and they were gems. They worked hard. They did everything, especially a girl named Steffi and a girl named Tina. Those two were outstanding. We had gone to the district championships as our club team. The state had made me the regional coach of the all-star team, and I had gotten those two on that team, and it was great. And I really enjoyed working with them. And when I had to leave, I felt really bad about it. In fact, I felt so bad that as they played in these championship games, I drove from where I was back to Weilheim for those games and a couple of practices prior to those games because I didn't really feel good about leaving those players behind. But that's a part of the territory that you learn to live with as a coach. So anyway, the Weilheim situation ended. I've posted the newspaper articles from the end of that season, and I translated one. So if you want to take the time to read it, you'll see that I'm not making this stuff up. That's exactly what happened. And I ended up going to Siegen, And there was another strange situation, which I really don't even want to talk about because it's almost embarrassing. But anybody who knows Magic, I'd rather have this talked about personally. Ask Magic; he'll tell you that story. It's really pretty funny. At any rate, so that ended the chapter on Weilheim and my first professional coaching jobs, and that took us only 1 year. 3 jobs in 1 year. Is that because I'm not good? Yeah, you can be the judge of that. At any rate, that's where we are. And from there, we'll move on after Siegen. So I'll see you next time.